I gave my son everything. 38 years building an empire from scratch, waking up at 5 in the morning, sacrificing weekends, ruining my health in endless meetings, all so that Mason could have what I never had. But the day he received the notification from the notary about the change in my will, the first thing he heard from his wife, Veronica, was a scream that made my blood run cold. "Quick, get the $5 million out of his account. Neither of us works. We need that money." My son opened his banking app with trembling hands and froze, staring at the screen. I was standing in the doorway of the living room, watching, waiting, knowing exactly what he would see. $0. Nothing. Because 3 hours earlier, I had transferred every single penny from that account to a place where their greedy hands could never reach it. I should start from the beginning. My name is Arthur. I am 64 years old, and for the last 4 decades, I built a logistics company that operates in 6 countries. When my wife died, Mason was barely 2 years old. A brain aneurysm took her on a Sunday afternoon while she was making dinner. There was no time for goodbyes. There was no time for anything. Just the deafening silence of a house that was suddenly too big and too empty. I raised my son alone. Every parent-teacher conference, every scraped knee, every nightmare at midnight. I was both father and mother. I hired nannies when necessary, but I was always present. Always. Perhaps that was my mistake. Maybe I gave him too much. I bought him his first car when he turned 18, an imported sports car that cost more than what many families earn in 5 years. I paid for the most expensive Ivy League university in the country, even though he rarely attended classes. I gifted him a condo in Midtown when he turned 25, completely furnished, with a panoramic view of the skyline and 3 bedrooms he never needed. I offered him a position in my company, vice president, with a salary of $20,000 a month for basically showing up 3 hours a day and signing documents that others prepared. He never complained about having too little. He never had to fight for anything. I made sure of that. Everything changed when he met Veronica. She appeared in his life 3 years ago at a charity gala. 35 years old, brunette hair always perfectly blown out, flawless nails, designer clothes, a calculated smile, and cold eyes that evaluated the price of everything and the value of nothing. From the first moment, I knew something did not fit. The way she looked at me, as if she were making a mental inventory of my possessions. The way she asked about the company with an interest that seemed professional but hid pure ambition. Mason was blind, completely hypnotized. They got married 6 months later in a ceremony that cost me $200,000. I paid for everything, from her ivory dress to the honeymoon in the Maldives. Veronica thanked me with a smile that did not reach her eyes and a hug that lasted exactly 2 seconds. At first, they were subtle, little comments here and there. "Arthur, don't you think it's time you enjoyed your retirement? You have worked so hard." Or, "Mason has so many innovative ideas for the company. Maybe it is time to let the younger generation take the reins." I nodded, smiled, and let it slide. But the seeds were already planted. Veronica worked on my son like a patient sculptor, molding his mind day after day. Soon, Mason began to repeat the same phrases. "Dad, you should rest more. Dad, you're getting older. The stress isn't good for your health. Dad, I can handle the company perfectly." I let them talk. I let them dream. Because while they dreamed of my retirement, I watched. And I planned. 6 months ago, during a family dinner, Veronica finally showed her cards. We were in my dining room, the same table where I had celebrated every one of Mason's birthdays, where I had mourned my wife's death, where I had signed the most important documents of my life. She poured wine, too much wine, and waited until we were all relaxed. Then, with that soft and venomous voice she had perfected, she said, "Arthur, Mason and I have been talking. We think it is time to make your retirement official. We want you to transfer the company completely to Mason's name. He is your only son, your natural heir. Why wait? Do it now, while you can enjoy seeing him succeed." Mason nodded enthusiastically, like a child waiting for permission to open his Christmas presents. I took a sip of wine. I let the silence stretch out. I looked at both of them, and I said I would think about it. That night I could not sleep, not out of fear or sadness, but out of clarity. A brutal and painful clarity. My son did not love me. Or perhaps he did, in his own selfish and immature way. But Veronica definitely did not. To her, I was an obstacle, an old man standing between her ambitions and a fortune of several $1,000,000. And my son was too weak, too comfortable, too spoiled to see it. The next morning, I called my friend Robert, my trusted accountant for 20 years. I asked him to review all my accounts, all my properties, all my assets. I needed to know exactly what I had and where it was. I also called Diane, my lawyer, a brilliant 50-year-old woman who had handled every major contract of my career. I explained the situation. She listened in silence and finally said, "Arthur, you need to protect yourself, and you need to document everything." She was right. So I started recording. I installed discreet cameras in the living room, microphones in the dining room. Every conversation, every insult, every show of contempt would be recorded. Because I knew this was going to get worse, and I needed proof. 2 weeks after that dinner, Veronica and Mason showed up at my office without notice. I was reviewing financial reports when they walked in as if they owned the place. Veronica was wearing an emerald green dress that probably cost what an average worker earns in 3 months. Mason was wearing a suit I had paid for. They sat across from my desk without waiting for an invitation. "Dad, you've thought enough," Mason said with a forced smile. "It's time to act. We want to schedule a meeting with the lawyers this week to make the official transfer of the company." Veronica leaned forward, her eyes shining with a greed she didn't even try to hide anymore. "Arthur, this is best for everyone. You'll be able to rest, travel, enjoy your final years without worries. And we will take care of maintaining your legacy." His final years. As if I were a terminally ill patient waiting for death. I was 64, not 90. But to them, I was already an inconvenient corpse refusing to lie down in his grave. I took a deep breath. I smiled, and I said, "All right, let's do it." Veronica's face lit up, as if she had just won the lottery. Mason jumped up and hugged me, a quick and empty hug. "I knew you would understand, Dad. This is the right thing to do." We scheduled the meeting for the following Friday. 3 days. I had 3 days to finalize my true plan. That same afternoon, I secretly transferred $8 million to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands that I had opened 2 weeks earlier. No one knew of its existence. Not Mason, not Veronica, not even the local bank. I also moved the deeds of 2 properties I owned in Miami and a villa on the Spanish coast into a private trust managed by Diane. Legally, they were still mine, but they were completely out of reach of any attempted seizure. I left exactly $5 million in my main account at First National Bank, a figure large enough to awaken their greed, but not everything I actually had, because I needed them to believe they had won. I needed them to lower their guard. Friday arrived. We met at Diane's office, an elegant place with huge windows overlooking the city. Mason and Veronica arrived 15 minutes late, as always. She was wearing expensive sunglasses that she didn't take off until she entered the building. Diane received us with her usual professionalism, showing no emotion. She had the documents ready. Stock transfer deed, power of attorney, cession of administrative rights. Everything perfectly legal, everything perfectly drafted. I signed every page calmly, without rushing. Veronica watched every movement of my hand like a hawk. When I finished, Diane passed the documents to Mason. My son signed without reading. Not a single word. Veronica had to restrain herself from ripping the pen out of his hand and signing as a witness herself. When everything was complete, Diane stamped the documents and said, "The transfer is official. Mason Sterling is now the legal owner of 80% of Sterling Logistics Enterprises. The remaining 20% stays in the hands of Mr. Arthur as a minority partner, as agreed." Veronica frowned. 20%? I thought it would be a total transfer. Diane looked at her with that professional coldness I admired so much. "Mr. Arthur maintains a minority stake for legal and tax purposes. It is most convenient for everyone." It was a lie, of course. That 20% was my legal lifeline, my right to financial information, my way to keep watching. But they didn't need to know that. We left the office, and Veronica immediately pulled Mason aside. I pretended to check my phone while listening to their whispered conversation. Now comes the important part. We need him to give you access to his personal accounts. The 5 million he has saved, that's ours too. Mason hesitated. I don't know if he wants to give us that, Veronica. It's his personal money. She looked at him with contempt. Seriously? You just inherited a multi-million-dollar company and you're worried about an old man's pride? That money ensures immediate liquidity while we reorganize the company. Besides, what does a retiree need 5 million for? To buy medicine? She laughed, a cold, metallic laugh. Mason said nothing else. That night, during dinner at my house, he brought up the subject. Dad, Veronica and I were thinking, now that you've officially retired, wouldn't it be more practical to consolidate your personal savings? We could invest them in the company, generate more returns. I watched him chew his food, this son who had never worked a real day in his life, asking me to hand over my savings too. How much do you think I have? I asked with genuine curiosity. Veronica intervened quickly. According to the financial statements we reviewed, you have approximately $5 million in your personal account at First National Bank. So they had been investigating, snooping, probably bribing some bank employee to get confidential information. That is correct, I said calmly. $5 million, my safety net for old age. Veronica smiled. Arthur, you don't need a safety net. We will take care of you. Always. Your family. Family. That word in her mouth sounded like a threat. Let me think about it, I replied. I saw the frustration in her eyes, but she nodded. She knew she had to be patient. For now, the following days were revealing. Mason started going to the company only 2 hours a day, letting the managers I had trained for years do all the real work. Veronica accompanied him always, sitting in my old office as if it were hers, giving orders that nobody really respected but everyone obeyed out of courtesy. She started talking about necessary changes and modernization, code for firing loyal employees and hiring her friends. I watched from afar, receiving discreet reports from Robert, who remained the official accountant and my secret informant. One afternoon, 3 weeks after the transfer, I received a call from Diane. Arthur, you need to come to my office. Now. Her tone was urgent. I arrived in 20 minutes. She closed the door and put a document in front of me. Veronica tried to access your accounts at First National Bank this morning. She presented a fake power of attorney with your signature. The bank rejected it because you had biometric authentication set up, but she tried. I felt a wave of cold anger run through my body. She forged my signature. Diane nodded. I have contacts at the bank. They notified me immediately. This is fraud, Arthur. We could proceed legally right now. I shook my head. Not yet. This is perfect. Now I know how far she is willing to go. Let's let her keep digging her own grave. That same night I decided it was time to move the next piece on the board. I called Mason and told him I had made a decision about the $5 million. Come to the house tomorrow. We have to talk about the future. I heard the excitement in his voice. He probably ran to tell Veronica immediately. I could imagine her rubbing her hands together, already calculating what they would spend my money on. The next morning they arrived at 10, punctual for the first time in months. Veronica was wearing a cream-colored dress and sky-high heels. Mason was dressed casually, jeans and a shirt, as if this were just an unimportant formality. I received them in the living room. I had prepared coffee that neither of them touched. They were too anxious. Dad, you said you had made a decision, Mason said, sitting on the edge of the sofa. I nodded slowly. That is right. I have been thinking a lot about my future, about my retirement, about everything I built, and I reached an important conclusion. Veronica leaned forward. Which is? I looked her directly in the eyes. I am going to change my will. The silence that followed was deafening. Mason blinked, confused. Change your will? Why? I am your only son, your only heir. Exactly for that reason, I said calmly. Because you are my only son, and because I have given you everything without you having to earn it. The company is already yours. But the rest of my personal assets, my properties, my savings, my investments, I have decided that when I die, they will go to charitable foundations, foster care programs, hospitals, schools in poor areas. Places where the money will actually make a difference. Veronica's face went from confusion to disbelief, and then to fury in a matter of seconds. She jumped to her feet. What? Are you joking? You're going to give away millions of dollars to strangers instead of leaving them to your own blood? They aren't strangers, I replied quietly. They are human beings who need help. Mason already has the company. He already has his condo. He already has more than most people will have in their entire lives. He doesn't need more. Mason looked stunned. Dad, but those $5 million in your personal account, I thought. You said we would talk about investing them. And we talked, I said. My decision is to keep them exactly where they are until I die. Then they will be donated according to the instructions in my new will. I already spoke with Diane. The documents are being prepared. The signing is scheduled for tomorrow at 3 in the afternoon. Veronica let out a hysterical laugh. You can't do this. It's insane. What kind of father does this to his son? The kind of father who wants to teach him that money is earned, not inherited while waiting for someone to die, I replied firmly. She paced from one side to the other like a caged animal. I could see her mind working, calculating, looking for angles. Then she stopped. Her eyes narrowed. Tomorrow at 3. Correct. In Diane's office? Correct. She grabbed her purse. Mason, let's go, now. My son looked at me with a mixture of confusion and something that might have been disappointment. Dad, we can still talk about this. There is nothing to talk about. My decision is final. They left without saying goodbye. I heard the front door slam. I knew exactly what would come next. Exactly 40 minutes passed before my phone rang. It was a text message from Mason. Dad, we need to talk. It can't end like this. Give me a chance to convince you. I didn't reply. 20 minutes later, another message. This one was from Veronica, sent from Mason's phone. Arthur, I know you're upset about something. We can solve this as a family. Don't take rash decisions you might regret. I didn't reply to that either. I let them stew in their own anxiety. That night, Robert called me. Arthur, I just got an alert from the bank. There was an attempt to access your account from an IP address that I traced to Mason's condo. They used your username, but the password was incorrect. 3 failed attempts in the last 30 minutes. I smiled. Perfect. Let them try. The account has 2-factor authentication protection. They can't do anything without my fingerprint, and the code only I know. Do you want me to block the account? Not yet. I want to see how desperate they get. The next day, at 2 in the afternoon, 1 hour before my supposed appointment with Diane, I transferred the full $5 million from my account at First National Bank to the offshore account in the Cayman Islands. Every penny. The national account was left with a balance of $120. Just enough to keep it active. Then I sat in my living room, made tea, and waited. I knew the notification from the notary about the change of will would arrive exactly at 3:15. Diane had scheduled it that way. A will that I had actually drafted, signed, and notarized that very morning. All legal, all official. At 3 to 10 in the afternoon, my phone exploded. 5 missed calls from Mason. 8 text messages. Veronica sending long, desperate audio messages. I ignored everything. At 3:25, they pounded on my door with such force I thought they would break it. I opened it slowly. Mason's face was red and sweaty. Veronica was behind him, phone in hand, showing me the notification from the notary. What kind of absurdity is this? Mason shouted. You really changed the will. We just received it. Veronica pushed past me and entered my house like a whirlwind. Don't just stand there, Mason. Quick, transfer the $5 million from his account. Neither of us works. We need that money now before he does another crazy thing. Mason pulled out his phone with trembling hands. He opened the banking app. I stood by the door, watching, enjoying it. I saw him enter the transfer section. I saw him search for my account. I saw his face transform from anxiety to absolute confusion. No, it can't be, he whispered. Veronica snatched the phone from him. She looked at the screen. Her face lost all color. Where is the money? She asked with a trembling voice. Where are the $5 million? Mason turned to me. Dad, the account. It's empty. There's only $120. I shrugged. Really? How strange. Veronica looked at me with pure hatred. What did you do? Where did you move the money? I have no idea what you are talking about, I said calmly. That is my private account. I can do whatever I want with my money. She took a step toward me. You are stealing from us. That money belongs to Mason. It's his inheritance. No, I corrected her. It was my money. And according to my new will, which you just received, when I die, it will all go to charity. But while I am alive, that money is where I decide it is. And you have no legal right over it. Mason let himself fall onto the sofa, his head in his hands. Veronica was shaking with rage. This isn't going to stay like this. We are going to contest that will. We are going to prove that you are senile, that you aren't in your right mind. Try it, I said with a smile. I have recent psychiatric evaluations, medical certificates, all signed by professionals, confirming I am perfectly lucid. Diane made sure of that. But go ahead. Waste money on lawyers who will tell you exactly the same thing. Veronica grabbed Mason by the arm. Get up, we're leaving. My son looked at me with eyes I no longer recognized. Dad, why are you doing this to us? Why? I said slowly. Finally, I realized that raising a son by giving him everything without effort wasn't love. It was weakness. And now I am correcting that mistake. They left my house. This time it was Veronica who slammed the door violently. I sat in my favorite armchair, the same one where I had rocked Mason when he was a baby, where I had read him bedtime stories, where I had celebrated every achievement of his childhood. And, for the first time in years, I felt something resembling peace. But I knew this was just beginning. Veronica wasn't one to give up, and I was prepared for what was coming. I took out my phone and sent a message to Diane. Phase 1 complete. Prepare Phase 2. She replied immediately. Already in motion. The next 3 days were absolute silence. Not a call, not a message, nothing. Mason and Veronica had completely disappeared from my radar. I knew that silence wasn't surrender. It was strategy. They were planning something. Robert kept me informed about movements at the company. Veronica had started making aggressive changes. She fired 4 veteran managers who had been with me for more than 15 years, replacing them with young consultants who charged triple and knew half as much. She was bleeding money unnecessarily, but since I only had a 20% stake, I couldn't stop her. Not yet. On the 4th day, I received a call from an unknown number. I answered. It was the voice of an older woman, trembling. Mr. Arthur Sterling? Yes. Who is speaking? It's Margaret. I work in housekeeping in the building where you lived. Excuse me for bothering you, but I thought you should know something. Your son and his wife came 2 days ago with locksmiths. They changed the lock on your condo. I froze. Which condo? The penthouse on the 18th floor. Where you lived? Mrs. Veronica told me that you had given them the apartment, that you lived somewhere else now, but it seemed strange to me because you never mentioned moving when we spoke. I gripped the phone tightly. Margaret, thank you very much for letting me know. Are they there now? I don't know, sir. I finished my shift at 5. I hung up and immediately called Diane. They changed the locks on my condo. The one in my name, registered as my primary residence. Diane let out a dry laugh. Perfect. That is trespassing and illegal dispossession. Do you want us to proceed legally right now? Not yet, I said thoughtfully. First, I want to see what else they do, but document everything. I am going to the condo right now. I arrived at the building at 6 in the evening. The doorman, Ralph, a 50-year-old man who had known me since I bought the place 12 years ago, greeted me with evident discomfort. Mr. Sterling, I didn't know you were coming. Why couldn't I come to my own apartment, Ralph? He looked down. It's just that. Your son told me you don't live here anymore, that the apartment belongs to him now. He even left instructions not to let you up if you appeared. I felt a cold rage settle in my chest. Ralph, look at me. Who is the legal owner of this apartment, according to the building records? You, Mr. Sterling. And who pays the maintenance fees every month? You, sir. Then I am going up to my apartment. If my son has any problem with that, let him call the police. Ralph nodded nervously and let me pass. I went up to the 18th floor. When I arrived at the door of my penthouse, sure enough, there was a new lock. I took out my phone and took photographs. Then I rang the doorbell. I waited. Nothing. I knocked again, harder. I heard footsteps inside. The door opened, and Veronica appeared in a lavender silk robe, a glass of wine in her hand. My wine. From my personal collection that I had saved for years. "What are you doing here?" she asked coldly. "I live here," I replied. "Or at least I lived here until you decided to change the locks without my permission." She smiled. A cruel smile. "Arthur, you don't live here anymore. This is Mason's home now. You said yourself you wanted to retire, rest. Well, it is time you find your own place. A place more appropriate for someone your age. This apartment is in my name. For now," she said, taking a sip of wine. "But that can change. Mason is the heir anyway. We are just accelerating the inevitable. Where is my son? He's busy. He can't see you right now." I tried to enter, but she blocked the door with her body. "You aren't coming in. If you try to force your way in, I'll call security and tell them a confused old man is trying to break into an apartment that isn't his." I stared at her. "Veronica, this is my apartment. I have the deeds. I have the payment receipts. I have everything. What you are doing is a crime." She shrugged. "Prove it. Meanwhile, leave. You aren't welcome here." And she slammed the door in my face. I stood in the hallway, breathing deeply, controlling the fury that threatened to explode. I took out my phone and called Diane. "They just kicked me out of my own apartment. I need you to start the legal eviction process immediately. I will do it tomorrow first thing. But Arthur, this is going to take time, maybe weeks. It doesn't matter. I am not going back to that apartment anyway. I have other plans." I hung up and went down to the lobby. I asked Ralph to give me access to the building's security cameras. As the owner, I had the right. We reviewed the recordings from the last 4 days. There it all was. Veronica and Mason arriving with locksmiths. Veronica giving cash to the locksmith, probably so he wouldn't ask questions. Mason taking out boxes of my personal belongings and throwing them into the building's trash room. My clothes, my books, photographs of my dead wife, all thrown away like garbage. "Ralph, I need copies of all these recordings," I said with a controlled voice. "Yes, Mr. Sterling. I'll prepare a USB drive for you right now." Half an hour later, I left the building with complete evidence of what they had done. I drove directly to the Emperor Hotel, the most luxurious in the city. 5 stars, suites with panoramic views, 24-hour butler service. I booked the presidential suite for a month. $14,000. I paid without blinking. If they wanted to play dirty, I would show them I still had all the resources in the world. That night, from the comfort of my suite overlooking the entire illuminated city, I called Robert. "I need you to investigate something. I want to know exactly how much debt Mason and Veronica have. Credit cards, loans, everything. You suspect something?" "I suspect the reason they are so desperate for my money isn't just greed. I think they are drowning in debt." Robert was silent. "I'll follow up. I'll have an answer for you in 2 days." "Perfect. And another thing, I want you to start looking for properties. Something big, elegant, in the best area of the city, with a garden, pool, private security. I am going to buy a new house, one they can never touch. Price range? Between $2 and $3 million. Make it spectacular." The next morning, Diane formally filed the eviction lawsuit against Mason and Veronica. She also included charges for illegal dispossession and destruction of private property, attaching the security footage and photographs of my belongings in the trash. The legal process had officially begun. That same afternoon, I received a furious call from Mason. "Are you suing us?" "I am suing you for illegally kicking me out of my apartment and destroying my things. Things that included photographs of your dead mother. Do you have any idea what you did?" Silence on the other end. That was a mistake. Veronica was organizing and— Veronica, I interrupted him. "Everything is Veronica. When are you going to take responsibility for your own actions?" "Mason, you allowed this. You helped. Don't come to me with excuses." "Dad, this is getting out of control. We can solve it." No. There is nothing left to solve. See you in court. I hung up. 2 days later, Robert sent me a full report. Mason and Veronica had debts of $800,000. Maxed out credit cards, a car loan they couldn't pay, debts with 3 luxury department stores, a personal loan they had taken out using the company as collateral without my knowledge when I was still the owner. They were financially destroyed, living a life of luxury on borrowed money, maintaining appearances they couldn't sustain. And they had counted on me handing over the $5 million to save themselves. Now that money had vanished, and they were desperate. Robert also sent me information about something else. Veronica had started selling company assets without full board authorization. Equipment, fleet vehicles, she even tried to sell one of the warehouses. All to generate quick cash. This is embezzlement, Robert told me over the phone. You can proceed legally against her, too. Keep all the evidence, I told him. We will need it soon. That afternoon, I went out to see properties with a high-level real estate agent. He showed me 5 houses. The last one was perfect. A Mediterranean-style mansion in the most exclusive area of the city. 4,000 square feet of construction. 7 bedrooms, infinity pool, garden with a fountain, garage for 6 cars, state-of-the-art security system. $2,800,000. I'll buy it, I said. Do you want to think about it? The agent asked, surprised. No, I want it. Prepare the papers. A week later, I was officially the owner of the most impressive mansion in the city, and Mason and Veronica still had no idea. But they would know soon. Very soon. The move to my new mansion was discreet but satisfying. I hired an interior design firm to furnish every room with elegance. Italian furniture, original artwork, a complete library with first editions of literary classics. In 3 weeks, the house went from being an empty shell to a palace worthy of a magazine. I spent $400,000 just on decoration and didn't regret a single penny. This was my declaration of independence, my way of telling the world I didn't need anyone to live well. Meanwhile, the legal case proceeded. Diane informed me weekly. Mason and Veronica had hired a mediocre lawyer who was trying to argue that I had given them verbal permission to occupy the apartment. They had nothing in writing, no document, no proof, only their word against mine. And I had deeds, security recordings, and witnesses. The judge scheduled the hearing for 6 weeks from now. Robert continued monitoring the company. Things were getting worse every day. Veronica had fired more experienced staff, including the director of operations who had been with me for 20 years. Clients were starting to complain about delivery delays, billing errors, lack of communication. 2 important contracts were not renewed. The company I had built with sweat and tears for 4 decades was being destroyed in a matter of months by incompetence and greed. One afternoon, 4 weeks after moving, I decided it was time for the next phase of my plan. I dressed in my best gray suit, freshly polished shoes, the Swiss watch I had bought to celebrate my first earned million. I drove my Mercedes to the most exclusive commercial area of the city. I had an appointment at Delgado and Associates Realty, the most prestigious agency, the one that handled multi-million-dollar properties. I arrived 15 minutes early, as I always did for important business. The receptionist offered me coffee. I accepted. I was checking my phone when I heard familiar voices at the entrance. I looked up, and there they were. Mason and Veronica, walking into the real estate agency as if they owned the world. Veronica was wearing a deep red dress, flashy jewelry, expensive sunglasses. Mason was wearing a suit that probably cost him $5,000 he didn't have. They hadn't seen me yet. They were talking to the lead agent, a man named Jim Delgado, the owner of the agency. "We want to sell properties quickly," I heard Veronica say. "We have a penthouse downtown and a beach house on the coast. We need immediate liquidity." My beach house, the one I had bought 15 years ago to escape on weekends. The one that was in my name, not Mason's. They were trying to sell my property. I stood up and walked toward them calmly. "Good afternoon," I said. The 3 of them turned around. Mason's face lost all color. Veronica gripped her purse tightly. Jim recognized me immediately and smiled. "Mr. Sterling, what a pleasure to see you. Your appointment is in 10 minutes, right?" "That is right, Jim. But I see my son and his wife are also here." What an interesting coincidence. Veronica recovered her composure quickly. Arthur, we didn't know you would be here. We just came to consult about investment options. Investment options, I repeated with a cold smile. How curious. I heard you wanted to sell a penthouse and a beach house, properties that, coincidentally, are registered in my name. Jim frowned and looked at Mason. Your name? Mr. Mason told me the properties were his. My son has a tendency to confuse what is mine with what is his, I said calmly. Jim, could you check the public registry for the legal owner of the penthouse at Executive Tower, floor 18, and the house located at Emerald Beach, mile marker 22? Jim took out his tablet and searched the official database. His expression changed. Mr. Sterling, Arthur Sterling, you are the registered owner of both properties. There is no Mason Sterling on the titles. Mason stammered. Dad, I thought. You said eventually. Eventually, when I died, I interrupted him. But it turns out I am still very much alive. And you tried to sell my properties without my authorization. That is called real estate fraud. Veronica looked at me with pure hatred. This is ridiculous. You are being petty and vindictive. We only came to ask. You came to sell something that doesn't belong to you, I corrected. Jim, could you add a note in the system? None of my properties are for sale. And if anyone other than me tries to sell them, you must immediately contact my lawyer, Diane Gutierrez. Jim nodded, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. Of course, Mr. Sterling. I'll note it immediately. I turned to Mason. How many other agencies did you try this at? He didn't answer. He just looked at the floor. Veronica pulled his arm. Let's go. We don't have to stay here and listen to this. But I hadn't finished. Before you go, let me tell you why I am here. Jim, can you show them the photographs of the property I just acquired? Jim hesitated, but finally turned his tablet so they could see. On the screen appeared images of my new mansion. The impeccable gardens, the infinity pool shining under the sun, the elegantly decorated rooms, the majestic facade. This, I said with satisfaction, is my new house. I bought it 3 weeks ago for $2,800,000. Paid in full, of course. No mortgage, no debts. It is completely mine. I saw Veronica clench her fists. Mason looked about to vomit. How? Whispered my son. Where did you get that money? From my private account, I replied calmly. The same account you tried to loot. The same one you thought was empty. It turns out I am much smarter than you give me credit for. I have resources you can't even imagine. Veronica took a step toward me. That money was for your family. For your son. My son has a multi-million-dollar company that I gifted him. If he can't make it work, that is his problem, not mine. Meanwhile, I will live very comfortably in my new mansion, spending my money as I please. After all, I earned it. Jim cleared his throat. Mr. Sterling, do you want to come to my office to discuss your other matters? Please, I said. Before leaving, I looked at Mason one last time. By the way, the eviction hearing is in 2 weeks. Make sure to get a good lawyer. Although considering your debts, I doubt you can afford a decent one. Veronica opened her mouth to reply, but I stopped her with a look. Don't say anything that can be used against you in court. You already have enough problems. And I walked away, leaving them standing in the middle of the real estate agency, humiliated in front of the most important people in the city. In Jim's office, I closed another deal. I put my beach house up for sale for $1,200,000, fair market price. But keep it discreet, I told him. I don't want publicity. Only serious clients with immediate payment capacity. And the penthouse? Jim asked. I'm not selling that one yet. I want that back first. There is a legal process underway. Jim nodded, understanding the situation perfectly. When I left the agency, Mason and Veronica were already gone. They probably ran home to fight, to blame each other, to despair. I got into my car and drove back to my mansion. Upon arriving, I poured myself a 30-year-old whiskey I had bought the week before. I sat on my terrace overlooking the garden, illuminated by strategically placed lights. The stars shone above. The city twinkled in the distance. And I, Arthur Sterling, at my 64 years, felt more alive than ever. That night I received a message from Diane. I just got a call from their lawyer. They want to negotiate a settlement out of court. They offer to vacate the penthouse voluntarily if you drop all legal charges. I replied immediately. Rejected. We go to trial. I want this on the public record. I want everyone to know what they tried to do. Understood, she replied. By the way, Robert passed me information about the debts. There is more than we thought. They are on the verge of personal bankruptcy. Perfect, I wrote. Let them fall. I am not going to save them this time. And I wouldn't. I had spent 38 years saving my son from the consequences of his actions, paying for his mistakes, solving his problems, giving him everything without him having to put in effort. No more. It was time for Mason to learn what it meant to fall without a safety net. It was time for him to understand the real value of money, of work, of responsibility, even if I had to destroy him completely first to rebuild him later. If there was anything left to rebuild. The eviction hearing arrived faster than I expected. The courtroom was small, cold, with that particular smell of old documents and life-changing decisions. I arrived 30 minutes early, accompanied by Diane, who carried a briefcase full of meticulously organized evidence. Mason and Veronica appeared 10 minutes late, with their cheap lawyer who was sweating nervously. Veronica shot me a look of pure hatred before sitting down. Mason couldn't hold my gaze. The judge was a 60-year-old man, gray hair, serious expression, who had seen too many family cases destroyed by money. He called the case. Diane presented first. She showed the deeds to the penthouse in my name, the maintenance payment receipts, the security recordings where Veronica and Mason changed the locks, the photographs of my belongings thrown in the trash, including the photos of my deceased wife. Every piece of evidence was a nail in their legal coffin. Their lawyer tried to argue that I had given them verbal permission to occupy the apartment, that it had been a family misunderstanding, that I was being cruel to my own son. He had no proof, only empty words. The judge reviewed the documents in silence. Finally, he spoke. Mr. Mason Sterling, do you have any written document, any contract, any proof that your father gave you permission to change the locks and occupy the property? Mason shook his head. No, Your Honor. It was a verbal agreement. A verbal agreement to take possession of a property valued at over $1 million. The judge's tone made it clear how ridiculous that sounded. I thought it would eventually be mine. Eventually is not now, said the judge firmly. Mr. Arthur Sterling is the registered legal owner. You have no right to occupy that property without his explicit consent. Furthermore, destroying personal belongings of the owner constitutes damage to private property. He turned to me. Mr. Sterling, do you wish to recover possession of your apartment? Yes, Your Honor. Do you wish to proceed with the charges for damages? I looked at Mason. I saw something in his eyes that almost made me hesitate. Almost. Yes, Your Honor. The judge banged his gavel, ruling in favor of the plaintiff. Mr. Mason Sterling and Mrs. Veronica Sterling have 5 days to completely vacate the penthouse and return the keys. Additionally, they must pay damages in the amount of $50,000 for destruction of private property and legal costs. If they do not comply within the established period, they will be evicted by force with the help of the authorities. Veronica jumped to her feet. This is unfair. He is his son. What kind of father does this? The judge looked at her severely. Ma'am, sit down. Kinship does not grant legal rights over private property. This court is based on law, not emotions. If you have anything else to say, do it through your lawyer. She fell back into her chair, trembling with rage. Mason remained motionless, staring at the table in front of him. When we left the room, Veronica caught up to me in the hallway. This doesn't end here, Arthur. I am going to destroy your reputation. I am going to tell everyone what kind of monster you are. A father who abandons his son. Go ahead, I said calmly. Tell your version. I have evidence, documents, recordings. What do you have? Fake tears and lies. Diane pulled my arm. Arthur, it's not worth it. Let's go. She was right. We left. That night, while I was eating a meal prepared by the private chef I had hired in my mansion, I received the first sign of what Veronica had threatened. My phone started exploding with notifications. Someone had created a video on social media. I opened it. It was Veronica, sitting in the penthouse, with tears rolling down her cheeks, voice cracking. "Hello, everyone. My name is Veronica, and I need to share something that is breaking my heart. My father-in-law, a man we thought loved us, has abandoned us completely. My husband Mason is sick. He needs expensive medical treatment, and his own father refuses to help us. Not only that, he is suing us, taking the roof over our heads, all because we changed our will in favor of charity instead of leaving everything to his only son. What kind of father does that? We are desperate, without resources, and he lives in a millionaire mansion while his son suffers." The video already had 50,000 views. The comments were brutal. "What a horrible man. Rich old men are all the same, selfish, poor woman, she deserves a better father-in-law." I called Diane immediately. "Veronica just posted a video full of lies on social media. She says Mason is sick, that we are abandoning them." "I already saw it," said Diane. "500,000 people have already seen it. It is going viral. What do? We can sue for defamation, but that takes time. Or we can respond with the truth. With proof? What do you suggest?" Diane paused. "Remember all those recordings you made in your house? The conversations where they despise you, where they plan to rob you? It is time to use them." I smiled. "Prepare everything. We are going to make our own public statement." The next day, Diane and I met with a public relations specialist named Ian, a 40-year-old man expert in crisis management and social media. We showed him everything. The audio recordings where Veronica said, "That old man doesn't need 5 million, we do." The security videos from the building, showing how they threw my things in the trash. The financial documents proving that Mason had never been sick, that there was no medical treatment. The debts of thousands of dollars they had accumulated buying luxuries they couldn't pay for. The attempts to sell my properties without authorization. Everything. Ian whistled. "This is gold. Veronica just dug her own grave. If we publish this correctly, public opinion will flip completely." "How do we do it?" I asked. "With a response video, but not you speaking directly. That would make you look defensive. We need a neutral third party to present the facts with evidence." "I can do that video as an independent consultant investigating the truth behind a viral story. I'll publish it on my channel, which has 2 million followers. It will be devastating for her." "Do it," I said without hesitation. Ian worked for 2 days. He edited a 20-minute video titled "The Truth Behind the Tears," investigating the Sterling case. It began by showing Veronica's video, then systematically dismantled every lie with evidence. Audio where she screamed about stealing the money. Video throwing photographs of my dead wife. Medical documents proving Mason had no illness. Records of luxury purchases while they owed $800,000. The attempt to sell other people's properties. At the end, Ian looked at the camera and said, "This is not the story of a cruel father. It is the story of a man who finally set boundaries after decades of being used by his own son and a manipulative daughter-in-law. Veronica's tears are not from pain. They are from frustration because her plan failed." The video was published on a Friday night. By Saturday morning, it had 3 million views. The comments had changed completely. "Veronica is a manipulative liar. That poor man, his own son, betrayed him. Arthur has every right to protect what he built. What a shame." Using social media for emotional extortion, Veronica tried to respond with another video, crying harder, saying the recordings were edited, that they were taken out of context. Nobody believed her. Every video she uploaded received thousands of negative comments. She had been completely canceled. Diane called me on Sunday. "Arthur, you have to see this. Veronica did a live stream last night. It lasted 2 hours. It was a total disaster. She sent me the link. I watched it in full. Veronica was sitting in the almost empty penthouse because they had already sold most of the furniture to pay debts. Her makeup was smeared, her hair disheveled. She screamed at the camera, insulting anyone who commented something negative. She said I had manipulated everything, that I was a vindictive old man, that Mason was a victim. At one point, Mason appeared in the background, asked her to stop recording. She screamed at him to shut up. He insisted. She threw the phone at him. The transmission cut off. But the damage was done. Millions had seen her public breakdown. Traditional media started covering the story. Newspapers, news programs, everyone was talking about the Sterling case. They sought me out for interviews, but I rejected them all. I didn't need to say anything. The evidence spoke for itself. 3 days later, I received a message from Mason. It just said, "Dad, I need to talk to you. Alone? Without Veronica? Please." I looked at the message for long minutes. Part of me wanted to ignore it. But another part, the part that still remembered the 2-year-old boy who had lost his mother, replied, "Tomorrow, 2 in the afternoon. At the cafe where we used to have breakfast when you were little." "I'll be there," he replied. The cafe was called the Time Corner, a small and cozy place that had survived 40 years in the same spot while the city changed around it. When Mason was a child, I took him there every Saturday after his swimming lessons. We ordered hot chocolate and pastries. He told me his dreams of being an astronaut, explorer, superhero. I listened to every word as if it were the most important thing in the world. I arrived 15 minutes before 2. I ordered a black coffee and sat at the corner table, the same one where we used to sit decades ago. The owner, Mr. Thompson, a 70-year-old man who knew our whole history, greeted me with a mixture of sadness and understanding. "Mr. Sterling, you haven't been here in years." "I know, Thompson. Life got complicated. I saw the news, the whole scandal. It must be very hard." I nodded, without saying more. Mason arrived exactly at 2. He looked terrible. He had lost weight, had deep circles under his eyes, his suit wrinkled as if he had slept in it. He sat across from me without saying a word. Thompson brought him water without asking. "Thanks for coming," Mason said finally, his voice barely a whisper. "You said you needed to talk." He took a deep breath, as if preparing to jump into the void. "Dad, I am drowning. Veronica is out of control. The debts are unbearable. Creditors call day and night. The company is losing money every month. I don't know what to do." I looked at him in silence, waiting. And the worst continued with a broken voice. "The worst thing is that I realized something. Veronica never loved me. She used me to get to you, to your money, and I was too stupid, too blind to see it. Now that there is no money to steal, she barely talks to me. She sleeps in a separate room. She talks all day on the phone with lawyers, looking for ways to sue you for more things." "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. "Because I need help." "Financial help?" "No. I know I don't deserve that. I need advice, guidance. I don't know how to get out of this disaster." I took a sip of my coffee. "Mason, for 38 years I have saved you from every problem. I bought every solution. I gave you everything without you having to earn it. And the only thing I achieved was raising you without tools to face real life. I don't know if giving you advice now would be helping you or continuing to harm you." He let his head fall into his hands. "You're right. I never really worked. I never fought for anything. You gave me everything. And when someone appeared who made me feel important, who told me that I deserved more, that you were the problem, I believed her. Because it was easier than accepting my own mediocrity. It was the first time in his life I heard him speak with such brutal honesty about himself. "What are you going to do about Veronica?" I asked. "I don't know. Part of me still. It's complicated." "It isn't complicated," I said firmly. "Either you love someone or you don't. If you love her despite everything she did, then stay and face the consequences together. If you don't love her, if you are just afraid of being alone, then leave her and face the consequences alone. But stop living in the limbo of indecision." Mason looked up. "Are you ever going to forgive me?" The question hung in the air between us. I thought of my wife, how I had loved her, how she had died leaving me alone with a baby. I thought of all the sleepless nights, all the sacrifices, all the times I put his needs before mine. I thought of the selfish man he had become, and I thought of the child he once was. "I don't know," I replied honestly. "Part of me wants to forgive you. You are my son. You are all I have left of your mother. But another part of me is so tired, so hurt, that I don't know if I can. What I do know is that forgiveness isn't something given because someone asks for it. It is earned, and you are barely starting to understand the magnitude of what you did." Mason nodded slowly. What do I have to do? How do I fix it? You can't fix it, I said. You can't erase that you tried to rob me, that you kicked me out of my house, that you threw photos of your mother in the trash. You can't undo that. What you can do is be better from now on. Start by taking real responsibility for your life. Fire Veronica from the company or resign yourself if she refuses to leave. Face the debts, declare bankruptcy if necessary, but do it with dignity. Get a real job where you have to prove your worth, and learn to live with the consequences of your decisions. And you? He asked, with a trembling voice. Are you going to continue with the lawsuits? Are you going to destroy me completely? You already destroyed yourself, Mason. I only protected myself. The lawsuits continue because I need to recover what is mine. But after that, what you do with your life is your decision. I won't be your safety net anymore. He remained silent for a long time. Finally, he asked, Can I ask you something? Where is the money really? The $5 million that disappeared. Veronica is obsessed with finding it. I smiled for the first time in the whole conversation, in a place where neither you nor she will ever be able to touch it, far enough to be safe, accessible enough so I can enjoy it. That is all you need to know. He nodded with resignation. I suppose I deserve it. It isn't about deserving, it is about consequences. Learning that actions have results. Something I should have taught you 30 years ago. We sat in uncomfortable silence. Thompson appeared with 2 slices of chocolate cake, the same one Mason ordered when he was a child. For old time's sake, the old man said with a sad smile before walking away. Mason looked at the cake but didn't touch it. Dad, I know it probably doesn't help to say it now, but I'm sorry. I really am sorry. For everything. I know, I said, but I'm sorry isn't enough. Apologies are words. I need to see actions. I need to see real change over years, not days. And even then, I promise you nothing. He stood up slowly. I am going to try to be better. Not for you, not to regain your forgiveness, but because I finally understand that if I don't change, I am going to end up completely alone and destroyed, and that terrifies me more than any lawsuit. That is the first mature thought I have heard from you in years, I said. He extended his hand to say goodbye. I shook it briefly. It wasn't a hug, it wasn't reconciliation, but it was something. An acknowledgement that we were both hurt and that the road to any kind of healing would be long and painful. I watched him leave the cafe, shoulders slumped, walking like a defeated man. I felt a twinge of something, not exactly regret, but a deep sadness for everything we could have been and never were. Thompson approached after Mason left. Do you think he'll change, Mr. Sterling? I don't know, Thompson, but at least now there is a possibility. Before, there was none. That night I received a call from Robert. Arthur, I have news. Veronica filed a lawsuit against you for psychological violence and economic abuse. She is asking for compensation of $3 million. I laughed. I couldn't help it. Psychological violence for protecting my own money. It is a garbage lawsuit that any judge will throw out, but it is going to be annoying. She is also trying to freeze your accounts, claiming they are part of a family estate. Let her try. All my important accounts are out of her reach, and I have documentation proving that every penny is mine, earned before she even met my son. There is something else, Robert said with a serious tone. Veronica is planning another live stream. According to my sources, she is going to present a supposed witness who will claim that you mistreated Mason during his childhood, an old neighbor who supposedly knew you guys. A neighbor I can refute with dozens of real witnesses, teachers, coaches, friends. Exactly, but she is desperate. She is going to try anything. Let her. Every lie she tells sinks her deeper. At this point, I am no longer fighting against her. I am just watching how she destroys herself. I hung up and went out to my terrace. The night was clear, the stars were shining. From my mansion, I could see the city lights stretching to the horizon. Somewhere out there, Veronica was plotting her next move. Somewhere, Mason was trying to decide what kind of man he wanted to be. And I was here, alone but at peace, waiting for the next act of this play that had begun with the best intentions and turned into a war. But this war was coming to an end, and I had won every major battle. Only the final blow was missing. Veronica's live stream was scheduled for Tuesday at 8 at night. Ian had alerted me in advance because he had contacts monitoring her social media. It's going to be her last attempt to turn public opinion, he told me. She has a witness prepared, probably paid, to say you were an abusive father. She wants to destroy your credibility completely. What do you suggest? I asked. That you tune in and watch, record everything, and be ready to respond with facts if necessary. Although honestly, I think she is going to sink herself. He was right. At 8 o'clock sharp, I connected from my tablet. Veronica appeared on screen in a black dress, perfect makeup, hair impeccably styled. She had transformed the nearly empty penthouse into an improvised set with good lighting. Clearly, she had spent money she didn't have on production. "Good evening, everyone," she began with a soft and controlled voice. "Thank you for joining me tonight. I know many lies have circulated about me, videos maliciously edited to make me look like a villain. But tonight I am going to reveal the complete truth about Arthur Sterling. The truth he doesn't want you to know." She paused dramatically. With me is Mr. Ernesto Vega, who was a neighbor of the Sterlings for 15 years. He was a witness to terrible things. The camera zoomed out to show a man of approximately 70 years, hunched over, with thick glasses. I recognized him immediately. Mr. Henderson had lived in our old neighborhood, but only for 3 years, not 15, and we were never close. Veronica began her interrogation. "Mr. Vega, can you tell us what you saw during the years you were neighbor to Arthur and his son Mason?" The old man cleared his throat nervously. "Well, I saw how Mr. Arthur was very strict with the boy. I heard him yelling frequently. Once I saw Mason with a bruise on his arm. I felt rage boil in my chest. It was a blatant lie." "Did you ever intervene?" asked Veronica with fake concern. "No, I was afraid. Mr. Arthur was a powerful man. No one dared to face him." The comments on the video began to divide. Some believed the story, others questioned it. "This is suspicious. Where was this witness all this time? If it was so obvious, why did he never call the authorities?" Veronica continued. "You see, Arthur built a public image of a dedicated father, but in private he was a tyrant. He controlled every aspect of Mason's life. He manipulated him emotionally. And now that Mason finally freed himself by marrying me, Arthur is taking revenge by taking everything from him." I was about to turn off the broadcast when something unexpected happened. A highlighted comment appeared on the screen. It was from a user named Sarah Morales, verified, with hundreds of thousands of followers. The comment said, "I was Mason Sterling's teacher in elementary school. This woman is lying. Arthur was the most involved father I knew. We never saw signs of abuse. I have documents to prove it." Veronica saw the comment and her face lost color. She tried to keep talking, but more similar comments started appearing. "I was Mason's swimming coach. His father never missed a competition. He was loving and patient. I worked with Arthur for 20 years. He is the most honest man I know. I was a classmate of Mason's. His dad took us all out for pizza after school. I never saw abuse." The broadcast was turning into a disaster. Veronica tried to change the subject, but Mr. Henderson started getting nervous. Well, I don't remember exactly all the details," he stammered. "How long do you say you were a neighbor?" asked someone in the comments. 15 years, replied Veronica quickly. "Lie," wrote another user. "I have lived in that neighborhood for 30 years. Mr. Henderson only lived there from 2008 to 2011. 3 years, not 15. Veronica tried to defend the inconsistency, but it was too late. The audience had detected the lie. The comments turned brutal. "You paid an actor to lie. This is pathetic. Veronica, accept your defeat with dignity." Then something happened that no one expected. A door was heard opening off camera. Mason entered the frame, visible to everyone. "Veronica, turn that off," he said with a firm voice. She turned around, surprised. "What are you doing? I am in the middle of—" "Turn it off now," he repeated louder. "I am not going to allow you to keep lying about my father." The silence was deafening. The viewers skyrocketed to over 500,000 in seconds. Everyone wanted to see what would happen. Mason, leave. This doesn't concern you, said Veronica through gritted teeth. It does concern me. He is my father. And he never mistreated me. Never. It was me who betrayed him. It was me who allowed you to manipulate me against him. But no more. Veronica stood up facing him. You are ruining everything. We need that money. We need to win this war. There is no war, Veronica. We already lost. We lost because we were wrong from the beginning. Mason turned to the camera. I want everyone to know the truth. My father gave me everything. A privileged life, education, opportunities, unconditional love. And I repaid him by trying to rob him, kicking him out of his house, destroying his most precious memories. Veronica convinced me that he was the enemy, but the enemy was always me. My cowardice, my selfishness, my inability to be a real man. Veronica tried to turn off the broadcast, but Mason stopped her. No, let it run. Let everyone see this. He pointed at the old man trying to sneak away. Mr. Henderson, you probably paid him to lie. My father never hit me. He never yelled at me without reason. He was the best father anyone could ask for. And I destroyed him. Tears were running down his face now. They were real, not acted. Dad, I know you are probably watching this, and I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I want you to know that I am going to spend the rest of my life trying to be the man you hoped I would be. I am going to face my debts. I am going to work for real. I am going to earn my own way. And if one day, years from now, you decide to give me another chance, I will be ready. Veronica screamed at him to shut up, that he was ruining everything, but he ignored her. And to everyone watching, learn from my mistake. Don't let anyone manipulate you against your family. Don't assume your parents' money is yours by right. Earn your own place in the world. Because this hell I am living in is the result of years of taking the easy way out. He finally turned off the broadcast. The screen went black. I sat on my terrace, staring at the tablet, processing what I had just witnessed. My phone exploded immediately. Diane, Robert, Ian, all sending messages. Did you see that? Mason just saved his soul on national television. Veronica is finished. Completely. I didn't reply to any message. I just sat there, feeling something I hadn't felt in months. It wasn't forgiveness yet. It wasn't reconciliation. But it was something. A small crack in the wall of ice I had built around my heart. A possibility. The next day, the media exploded with the story. Prodigal son redeems himself in viral broadcast. Mason Sterling confesses manipulation and betrayal. Veronica Sterling exposed as professional liar. The video of the broadcast had 10 million views in 24 hours. Mason had become a viral symbol of redemption, albeit controversial. Some supported him for his bravery in confessing. Others criticized him for having reached that point in the first place. Veronica tried to do damage control with another video, but no one believed her. She had lost all credibility. Brands that sponsored her on social media canceled contracts. Her followers abandoned her in droves. In 3 days, she had lost 80% of her audience. I received a message from Mason 2 days after the broadcast. Dad, I am leaving the penthouse today. Veronica and I are going to divorce. I have contacted a lawyer to declare personal bankruptcy and legally separate myself from all the debts. I am also going to resign from the company. I am not qualified to run it. I am going to look for a normal job, something where I have to start from the bottom. I don't ask you for money. I don't ask for help. I only ask that one day, when I have healed, you consider meeting the man I will become, not the spoiled child I was. I didn't reply immediately. I let him wait. 2 days later, I finally wrote. The company I built for 40 years is worth more than your pride. I am not going to let it be destroyed by your incompetence or your need to punish yourself. I am going to retake control. You can stay if you want, but as an employee. Normal salary, no privileges, working for managers who know the business. If you accept those terms, show up Monday at 8 in the morning at my office. If not, good luck in whatever you decide to do. His reply arrived in minutes. I'll be there. Thank you, Dad. I won't fail you. You already failed me, I wrote. Now just don't fail yourself. On Friday, I received the official notification. Veronica had withdrawn all her lawsuits against me. Her lawyer had quit. She was alone, without money, without credibility, without anything. Mason had initiated the divorce process with equitable debt division, which meant she would have to pay her half. She was destroyed. Completely, as I had planned from the beginning. But I no longer felt satisfaction in her fall. Only exhaustion. Exhaustion from the whole war, from the drama, from the pain. It was time to close this chapter. It was time to rebuild. Or at least try. On Monday, at 8 in the morning sharp, Mason was standing in front of the Sterling Logistics Enterprises building. I saw him from my office window on the 10th floor. He was wearing a simple suit, nothing flashy, and a backpack with what I assumed was a laptop. He didn't arrive in the sports car I had gifted him. He arrived on public transport. That told me everything I needed to know about his seriousness. I called my assistant. "Victoria, have Mr. Mason Sterling come in." When he entered my office, he didn't go straight to hug me, nor attempted an emotional conversation. He stood in front of my desk, waiting for instructions, like an employee. "Sit down," I said. Saturday. "I am going to be very clear about how this works," I began. "You are not my son in here. You are an employee. You will start in the field logistics department, coordinating deliveries and working directly with drivers and warehouse staff. Your immediate boss will be Robert, who reports directly to me. Your salary will be $3,000 a month, the standard for that position. No special bonuses, no privileges, no private office. You will share a desk with 3 other coordinators." Mason nodded. "Understood. Your schedule is from 8 in the morning to 6 in the evening, Monday to Friday, rotating Saturdays, when there are emergencies. If you arrive late, it gets deducted from your salary. If you don't meet your monthly metrics, you will receive warnings like any other employee. 3 warnings and you will be fired. Any questions? When do I start?" "Now. Robert is waiting for you on the 3rd floor." He stood up, grabbed his backpack. Before leaving, he stopped. "Dad." "Arthur," I corrected. "Thank you for this opportunity." "I won't waste it." "Don't thank me. Prove it." He left my office, and I stared at the closed door for a long time. I didn't know if this would work. I didn't know if Mason could really change, or if this was just another temporary act before returning to his old patterns. But I was giving him a chance. One chance. The following weeks were revealing. Robert sent me weekly reports on Mason's performance. The first few days were disastrous. He made basic mistakes, confused delivery routes, took triple the necessary time on simple tasks. The other coordinators complained that they had to compensate for his incompetence, but he didn't quit. He arrived early, stayed late, asked questions, took notes. In the 3rd week, Robert reported improvement. He is learning. Slow, but he is learning. The drivers say he is respectful, that he listens to their suggestions. That is something. In the 6th week, Mason met all his metrics for the first time. Robert showed me the numbers. He is averaging the same as the other coordinators now. He is no longer a burden to the team. I didn't congratulate him. I didn't go to his desk to pat him on the back. I let the work speak for itself. Meanwhile, I retook total control of the company. I fired all the useless consultants Veronica had hired. I rehired the veteran managers she had fired, offering apologies and compensation for the mistreatment. I restructured operations, renegotiated contracts that had been mishandled, recovered clients we had lost. In 3 months, the company was back in the black. In 6 months, we had recovered all lost ground and were growing again. The penthouse was finally vacated. I hired a deep cleaning company and redecorators. It ended up better than before. I put it up for rent for $15,000 a month. A foreign businessman took it immediately. My beach house sold in a month for $1,300,000, $100,000 more than I was asking. A buyer who didn't even haggle. All that money went to my protected accounts, fattening the estate that Mason and Veronica could never touch. I heard nothing from Veronica for months. Until one day, Ian sent me an article from a tabloid. She had tried to reinvent herself as a life coach on social media, selling courses on how to overcome adversity and rebuild your image. The comments were brutal. No one had forgotten her lies. Eventually, she closed all her public accounts and disappeared from the internet. According to Mason, with whom I now had brief and strictly professional conversations at the office, she had returned to her family in another city, broke and humiliated. The divorce was finalized without drama, division of debts, no alimony, total separation. Mason was left with $400,000 in debts that he paid little by little with his salary. He had sold the sports car, moved into a small one-bedroom apartment, lived on the basics. I learned these details not from him, but from Robert, who kept a discreet eye on the situation. One night, 6 months after Mason started working, I received a message from him. "Can we have dinner? Not at the office. As father and son, not as boss and employee. I understand if you say no." I thought about it for 2 days before replying. Saturday, 7 in the evening. "I'll send you the address." I gave him the address of my mansion. He had never been there. When he arrived, I saw his face of amazement upon seeing the property. The illuminated gardens, the fountain, the impressive architecture. "Come in," I said, opening the door. I led him to the dining room where I had prepared a simple dinner. Nothing extravagant. Pasta, salad, moderate wine. We sat down. The silence was uncomfortable at first. "This house is incredible," he said finally. "It is my refuge. The place where I rebuilt my peace after you two tried to destroy me." He looked down. "I'm not going to ask for forgiveness again. I already did enough times. I know words mean nothing. You're right. They mean nothing. But the last 6 months mean something. Robert tells me you've been working hard, that you aren't a burden to the team anymore. I'm trying. Some days are harder than others. The work is exhausting, physically, mentally. I never worked for real until now. I never knew what it means to earn a salary. That is reality for 90% of the world, Mason. Welcome to real life." We ate in silence for a few minutes. Then he spoke. "I've been going to therapy, twice a week, paying for it myself with my salary. The therapist says, I was raised with love but without boundaries, that you gave me everything except the opportunity to fail and learn. I don't blame you for that. You did what you thought was best. But now I am learning what I should have learned 20 years ago." I nodded. "I've been reflecting too. Diane made me see something. I was a great provider but a bad teacher. I gave you fish but never taught you to fish. I thought protecting you from pain was love, but it was weakness. Do you think one day we can have a normal relationship?" he asked with a voice loaded with hope. "I don't know," I replied honestly. The damage was deep. The betrayal was real. You can't expect everything to go back to how it was before, because before was dysfunctional too. What we can try is to build something new, something based on mutual respect, honesty, and real consequences. "I settle for that," he said. "It is more than I deserve." We finished dinner with lighter conversation. I told him about my expansion plans for the company. He told me about a route optimization project he was developing in his free time. I asked him if he could present it formally to Robert. He said yes. When he left that night, we shook hands. Not a hug, not yet, but a firm hand with direct eye contact, an acknowledgement that we were both trying. Months kept passing. Mason was promoted to logistics supervisor after a year, with a salary increase to $5,000 a month. He earned it legitimately, with metrics backing the decision. The employees who reported to him respected him because he had been in the trenches with them. I kept living in my mansion, enjoying my life, traveling when I wanted, investing wisely. The $8 million in the offshore account grew to $10 million with smart investments. I bought another property in Europe, a villa in Tuscany, where I spent the winters. No one could touch what I had built. I was protected, I was prosperous, and finally, I was in peace. A year and a half after all the drama, Mason invited me to his apartment for the first time. It was small but clean, tidy, decorated with modest taste. He showed me with pride how he had already paid $200,000 of his debts. I only lack $200,000 more. In 3 years, I will be completely free. "I am proud of you," I said. And I meant it. Seriously. His eyes filled with tears. "That is the first time you say that in." I don't remember how long, because it is the first time you have really earned it. We sat on his small sofa. Dad, there is something I need to tell you. I've been considering this for months. When I finish paying my debts, I want to renounce any right to your inheritance. I want you to make that will you planned, the one that donates everything to charity. I don't want your money. You already gave me too much in life. What I want is your respect. And if one day you consider me worthy of calling me your son again, not by blood but by merit, that will be the only inheritance I need. I was left speechless. This man in front of me was no longer the spoiled child I had raised. He was someone new, someone who was building himself from the foundation up. Mason, I said slowly, I am not going to promise that the money will be yours, but I promise you this. If you continue on this path, if you continue being the man you are proving to be, then, when I die, whatever I decide to leave you, you will have earned it. It won't be a gift. It will be an acknowledgement. That is all I ask, he replied. We spent the rest of the afternoon talking. For the first time in years. Really talking. About his mother, about my regrets, about his mistakes, about the future. It wasn't a magical reconciliation where everything was solved with a hug. It was something better. It was the beginning of something real, built on truth and effort. When I left that night, he hugged me, a long hug that neither of us wanted to let go. I love you, Dad, he whispered. I know, I replied, and one day, when I have healed completely, I will be able to tell you the same without reservations. I will wait as long as necessary, he said. I drove back to my mansion with mixed emotions. Sadness for the lost years, hope for what could come, peace knowing I had done the right thing by setting boundaries. Finally, I had learned the most important lesson. Kindness should never be practiced at the cost of self-destruction. Loving someone doesn't mean allowing them to destroy you. Sometimes, the truest love is letting them face the consequences of their actions. Even if it hurts, even if it is difficult, even if it means seeing them fall before they can get up by themselves. I don't regret having been Mason's father. I only regret not having understood sooner that giving him everything wasn't the same as preparing him for life. But now, finally, he was learning, and I was learning to forgive. Slowly, at my own pace, without rushing. The road would be long, but for the first time in years we were both walking it in the right direction.